Good morning. We're on page 404, Tav Daled, of the Mittler Rebbe's Maimer, discourse called Mika Hashem Elokeinu, which is based on the Alter Rebbe's Maimer in Torah Ohr, the same title that we have learned a while back, which is in turn the basis, foundational text of the end of Hemshech Ayin Beis, which we've concluded, but as we know, the Rebbe Rashab never finished the whole Hemshech. So learning this, we're seeing, firstly, the source material, as well as the continuing discussion of ideas that the Rebbe Rashab never got to. Even though he began the discussion with questions and themes that he introduced. So namely, where we are right now is in this understanding, after explaining Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, which the Rebbe Rashab does explain, and then explaining Ner Mitzvah, which the Rebbe Rashab does not explain. At least briefly explains it on page 1352, but elaborately, as the Mittler Rebbe explains, he does not explain. Here we are explaining. Now we're coming to the second half of that verse, the Torah Ohr. What is the Torah Ohr in context, in contrast to Ner Mitzvah? With a presenting question, which of them is greater? Because Ner Mitzvah and Torah Ohr would seem to suggest that Torah Ohr is the light, and Ner Mitzvah is only a candle. And without the Torah Ohr, it doesn't have light, as we discussed. So to understand this, he began by prefacing on page 403 that there's two levels of light. To understand the Sheirish Inyan HaChochmah, the Torah Shenikra Ohr. What is the root of this Inyan of Chochmah, of Torah, which is called Torah Ohr, light? That there's a light, the light after the Tzimzum, meaning after the Tzimzum, the transmission. Light is, of course, the example for all forms of transmission, including divine transmission, like a teacher transmitting an idea to students. And then there's a light pre-Tzimzum, as it stands, what he calls Atzmi, and then afterwards Pnimius and Atzmus that is connected to the source itself, which precedes the Tzimtzum. And you have both of them in the process of creation. In creation itself, you have Vahi Erev, Vahi Beika, first Cheshach, and then Vahi Ohr, first evening and then morning, first dark Tzimtzum and then light. Like he said, but prior to that, you have a light that precedes the Tzimtzum. And that is what he called Gedol Ohr Mipnei Cheshach. The first there was Ohr, and then he rolled it back, so to speak, as it recedes back into the source to allow the Cheshach to emerge, the Tzimtzum, and then in turn, Gedol Ohr Mipnei Cheshach. Gedol Ohr Mipnei Cheshach, Cheshach Mipnei Ohr. And then comes the light that follows the Tzimtzum. So the darkness recedes back. That is the first thing that he said. To go deeper, he explained, then there's a level that even that defies concealment altogether. Not only is it a level pre-concealment, but it's a level that defies concealment. In the words that he said, like the Rav, is Megala, called Primis Atzmus Chwach, Commercial Atzmus, Bli Helen Velavush Master Klal. He's in a state that nothing is concealed before him. Everything that is concealed for others is for him not a concealment. So even when the God, divine, uses the power of concealment, for him it's not a concealment, as he's explaining here. And he gave a few examples of it that you find. So someone like a teacher, even when he's giving an example, or like he said, a mashal, or he's asking a question, or in some way there's cloaking the idea in a paradigm that the student can relate to, for him there's no concealment. Seichel anelam ekol, even a seichel anelam ekol rayin is not nelam klal. Like by Mashiach it says kol roz lo honestly, every secret does not elude him. No, there's no secrets before him, and even the greatest, deepest secrets is all revealed before him. Like we say by Shlomo Melech, he had, what was his extra wisdom? Not that he was a smarter man, that he was able to see Even in the concealment, he was able to see the deepest ideas. Like he said, that's why he was able to give 3,000 examples. He was able to reveal every concealed element in the mashal, from the mashal kadmeni, from the original mashal that God uses to explain or to create existence, if you wish. Megala amukis min echeshech, harikol cheshech v'helam de'emek chacham megala, k'may kol seichel v'chacham v'shabah begili hasogya. So he's able to reveal the deepest secrets. So this is more than just a light that precedes the darkness. It's a light that is not subject to darkness. So now we'll continue from the end of the bracket. He's going to say this indicates this deeper level that he's describing now, that defies and is not affected by concealment, tells you that this Ohr is of a different quality altogether than the Ohr after the Tzimtzum. Remember, there's two levels of Ohr here, and he's comparing. So it's not just a quantity difference; it's a quality difference, and that is shemeira. So he says, "Im kain zeu shemeira hira amitis ala yesh sheidish de b'chinas er kazeh ein min ha'er haba acharat tzimtzum v'helam." The fact that this ability to pierce every cloak and to see and reveal every secret and be able to see the truth within everything and not be affected by any concealment, this indicates hira amitis in a very real way that the root of this Ohr is not from the root haba acharat tzimtzum. It's coming from a very different type of personality. It's a different type of light. The Helen. She'im kain, because if it did come from that Ohr, if it was just a higher level of Ohr prior to Tzimtzum, so then he says, Lo Ohr zeh megala amuk is the chachma nalama shenikra cheshach sisrei. So then the Ohr would not be able to reveal the amuk is the depths of the concealed ideas and the cheshach sisrei, the power that lies within the darkness. To even put it even more explicitly, the very power for God to be mitzamtzim oneself, that's also a power. And this level is sees through that as well. In other words, it's not subject to concealment. If it was the Ohr after the Tzimtzum, is for sure subject to the concealment. Like we learned at length, and we also learn now that a student, when he's getting the idea from his teacher, obviously the Tzimtzum has an effect. That's why he's able to understand it. So the teacher is receding, he's withholding the depths that we're talking about, and for him, it's not concealed, but for the student, it absolutely is. So the Ohr that's within him is not just that it is not affected by the concealment; it ultimately reveals anything that's concealed. That means it's coming from a completely different level that's not subject to concealment. Would not be able to reveal the secrets. Because remember, it's not just revealing that which the student doesn't know. It's also revealing fundamental secrets that are completely beyond anything. Like he said before, less machshava tfisa beklal, secrets that are not known at all. So, shenikra cheshach sisrei, that's called cheshach sisrei. Shenisamtzim achi yavam menera gili ereb kazem etzumtzum kanal. So in the cheshach sisrei means darkness is his is his hiding place, if you wish, is his cloak. So it says that level is mitzamtzim to the point that you only have an Ohr that is subject to zeh mitzumtzum kanal. And here we're talking about a level that's not affected by that. So therefore you have to say that this Ohr that's revealed before, that precedes all darkness, all concealment and darkness, that it's not just preceding the Tzimtzum, but it's one that it's because its power is such that it can illuminate even a state of darkness. Like Shlomo Melech was able to see through, and that's why he was able to give a mashal for everything, because he was able to see the truth within every idea. Or like he said about Mashiach, or about Seichel Nela Mekol Raya. So this teacher is not only smarter than the student, he's able to also see through that every darkness, no darkness is concealed before him. Expression acheshech v'yachshech, that the darkness should not conceal the yalim klal and hide at all. So what he's saying here is that the root of this Ohr is a different level of Ohr. Now you could ask the question, how do we know that's the case? Maybe it isn't. Maybe there's a level of Ohr, and then the subject to Tzimtzum. It's true, from the point of view of the teacher, he's not affected by it. Well, who says it's a completely different level of Ohr? But that's why he's bringing the idea that we're not just talking about an Ohr that precedes Tzimtzum, we're talking about an Ohr that can see through everything. There's no such thing as darkness before it. So it's clearly a deeper concept in the whole idea of understanding the Helam. Now, is this connected to the Helam Atzmi or not? I don't want to even go there because I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But he's definitely speaking about an Ohr of this quality. And now he adds in the bracket, which comes from another manuscript, Sheshorshe, this level of Ohr that's able to pierce all darkness, Kudma Atzmus the Moir. It's in the Atzmus of the Moir. Shemer Ohr Shalei Atzmis Shalafonov. Shemer Ohr Shalei Atzmis, that in the Moir, the Ohr of the Moir, the way the Ohr is rooted in the Moir, in the source of light, there the very core power of Ohr is there. Shalafonov Vade Niglu Kol Talumis. Before him, certainly, all concealed things are revealed. Kol Talumis the Cheshach Ha'elyon. All concealed things, even of the Cheshach Ha'elyon, of the supernal darkness above, meaning the Cheshach of the Tzimtzum, are all revealed. V'loi nikra Cheshach or Yamukis Klal. And before him, it's not even called darkness or Amukis or depths. Amukis means actually like, it can be also tunnels. But Amukis means, but he said before, Magala Amukis, to reveal the depths, meaning the depths that are generally concealed. That's what the whole point is. So it's not even called darkness or depths before him. It's not subject to that level because he's beyond it all. In other words, in the two levels of Ohr, the first level of Ohr is in relation to darkness. There's darkness and there's light. So when the teacher applies the concealment, it conceals the light, and a little edge, Ephes Ketseyu, reaches the student. Fine. That's one level of light. There's another level of light that's connected to the Atzmus HaMoir, that not only precedes the Tzimtzum, but it's a different quality altogether. There, being that is connected to the source, so even when it recedes, or I should say, in all situations, it's not subject to any concealment altogether. So that's a far higher level of light. So you'll say, so why then is it called Ohr? So that's a good question. You could say it's conceptual Ohr because it could be revealed ultimately. Once the student begins to expand his containers, those levels of Ohr can enter as well. But most importantly, it's God's power to express himself. Remember, we learned in Ayin Beis that at the end of the day, both Cheshach, both Tzimtzum and Gilui, at the end of the day, are two tracks, two powers of God. One is God's will and power, desire to reveal himself, and one is God's desire to conceal himself. From God's point of view, it's just two divine forces, which are really like one. We spoke about Havayu Elikim, and then he spoke about the two levels of Yichud, and then ultimately they all are one. That's the end of Ayin Beis. So there's that element that when you're talking about that level of Atzmus Ohr, so there it's not separate from Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum is also God's power. So therefore, the very concept of saying concealed and revealed is not really a language when you're talking from the point of view of the Atzmus HaMoir. Even though the Atzmus HaMoir, the core source, wants these two tracks, but we're talking now a level where they are both simply expressions of one Atzmus. So what difference is there really? So in that sense, it's a completely different level. Ohr after the Tzimtzum is intentionally and deliberately a level of Ohr that is subject to Tzimtzum, and it's meant to come down to each level according to its needs and so on. It's meant to be concealed. We're talking here is on the Ohr and Atzmus HaMoir is simply saying Atzmus' power to express himself, to reveal himself. And that he keeps to himself. That's revealed for him, but the student, which comes after the Tzimtzum, is not seeing that part. Now, obviously, we're being told about it, means that we can reach that level ultimately. But right now, it's an intellectual process, meaning we're understanding it perhaps to some extent. But practically speaking, it's very two different qualitative different levels of Ohr, is essentially what he's saying here. This is quite a profound piece, and it goes hand in hand very much with Ayin Beis, because at the end of Ayin Beis, as I said, he spoke about this very specifically, about a level where just two different desires of God, the desire to reveal, the desire to conceal. I'll point it out exactly on page, this is in Ayin Beis. I'm going back to the end of Ayin Beis, right on page 14676. So he said it also a little earlier. So he said the Ratzon, there's the Ratzon, there's the two Ritzainus of Hashem. I just want to find the exact language. Ratzon Atzmus lias gili mina etzem, the loy lias b'chinas mokal yesh, v'abeis lias gili esh yeh mokal yesh. So I'm not saying these two levels are exactly what we're learning here in Mittler Rebbe, but it could be they're very similar in the idea, because we're talking about two Ritzainus, and from the point of view of the higher level, like he said, cheshach leyachshich. But before him, vade niglu kol talum is the cheshach ha'elyon. Now, what I'm wondering here is, if I may add this before we continue, is this really also, is there two levels in this level itself? You can say, for example, the Shlomo Melech, that God blessed him with a particular wisdom that nothing was concealed before him. He's able to see behind, with beneath every cloak, so to speak. That was his wisdom. Most of us can't. Shlomo was blessed with that. And perhaps even a higher level is the way it is by the Eibishter. There, initially, nothing is concealed. Shlomo had to be blessed with such a chacham. But by the Eibishter, like he says, liglu kol talum is the cheshach. You can't say that things are concealed and God sees through the concealment. He's the one that creates the concealment. He's the essence of it all. So that's just, I'm just speculating, are there two levels here within this higher level? He doesn't say there are two. I'm just saying, it sounds to me that there's one element is where someone is blessed with the ability to see through every darkness, nothing is concealed before them. And then there's a level where it completely defies altogether any concealment. Nothing is concealed, period. It's not really necessarily relevant to the understanding of the Maimer here. Just as I'm reading it, I'm just thinking, is there a distinction between the two? One is about the Eibishter, and one is about the Mashiach or Shlomo HaMelech. Just a thought as we're learning this.
Can you take a question?
Let me finish till the end of the paragraph, because we're literally middle of the topic. So let me finish. The Mashayashas Cheshach Sisrei, that which we say that he established darkness as his hiding place. We're talking about God established darkness, and he is within that darkness. So he established darkness. Like he said before that, he called it Tzimtzum Light. He's just speaking now about a level that's not affected by that. So he says like this: that which he created, Cheshach Sisrei, Zeu shenesamsim nesalom b'zeh kanal. That's the level of Ohr where he absolutely, the Ohr is nesamsim, is diminished and concealed within this cheshach, within this darkness canal. As we discussed earlier, b'pirush geilul Ohr mipnei cheshach. That's what we said, geilul Ohr, that he rolls back, so to speak, pulls back, recedes the Ohr mipnei cheshach in face of the darkness that's emerging. So that's clearly that the Ohr is being the samsim in order for the cheshach to come into play, meaning the tzimtzum. Al kain Ohr zeh megala kol hahelem de chochmah. Lefi shekol cheshach nitchem mipnei Ohr zeh. So in other words, the cheshach only affects the Ohr that is subject to concealment. But the Ohr that's preceding the cheshach has the ability to be megala kol hahelem de chochmah, because kol cheshach nitchem mipnei Ohr zeh. because this Ohr is not subject to darkness. That's what I think he's saying here. So now he concludes. So now v'zehu b'chinas Ohr de Torah mitzvahs dafke she'amar v'Torah Ohr, and this higher level that we're talking about is the Ohr of Torah mitzvahs, not the lower level. That of what we say v'Torah Ohr. Why? Shehu pnimius ha'chachma de Atzmus ein sof mamish, because Torah is not just chachma; it's pnimius ha'chachma, the inner dimension of wisdom of the core of ein sof mamish. B'chinas Ohr Atzmus pnimius, like he's been referring to, the core and inner dimension of the Ohr, the higher level, kamoy b'matan Torah, like we see by matan Torah, shebe'er panecha nasato lanu. So expression is er panecha, the light of your face. Chassidus always teaches panecha is not just the face; it means your pnimius, the pnimius and atzmus, because it could have just said sha'ir nasato lanu. You gave us light. They say no er panecha, so it's referring to pnimius ha'er. That was what was given by matan Torah, the higher level of Ohr. Shehu k'moy Ohr hameir atzmei kodim sheyad tzimtzum adishon the cheshach sisrei. This is like by Torah, like by matan Torah, and by Torah is given the Ohr. It maybe should say hameir la'atzmei, but it could say hameir atzmei. The light as it shines for itself, Pre-Tzimzum Light is what Torah includes. In other words, without Torah, without matan Torah, we would have the lower level of Ohr. But Torah includes in itself, encompasses within it, this Atzmus Primius Ohr, Pre-Tzimzum of Cheshach Sisrei, or canal. As we discussed earlier, Ki b'chachma, next page, 405, Ki b'chachma the Torah Ohr, because in the wisdom of Torah Ohr, of the light of Torah, this higher level of light, Sheira b'chinas Atzmus Ein Sof Mamish, resides, dwells, the Atzmus Ein Sof Mamish, as it was pre-Tzimzum, like we say, Hayahu Shmai Bilvad. Shmai refers to Ohr. That pre-Tzimzum, there was him and then his light. What light are we talking about? The light pre-Tzimzum Ohr. So that's what Torah Ohr refers to, the higher level. And finally, the parentheses, and this is, as I remember we discussed it when I learned it the first time. Let me just explain it, and then I'll stop for questions. Umashakosov Lamaila, he's qualifying something. Earlier we learned that there was Das Elyon and Das Tachten. So it said what we learned earlier, that there's the concept Be'inyan Beis Deis, the Das Elyon, Miyesh La'ayin. So we learned there was two perspectives. The perspective of Das Elyon, which is from the Yesh Amiti to the Ayin Amiti, the Ayin of the Yesh Amiti, that's the higher level. He says, Zeu Ayin de Chochmilah Hagduma de Torah Ohr. So he's now associating the higher level of Das Elyon with the Ohr of Torah Ohr, the higher level of Ohr, of the Chochmilah Hagduma de Torah Ohr. That's the Chochmilah Hagduma of Torah Ohr, the higher level of Torah Ohr. Kameshi is bar, that shall be explained. So we see here is already laying the ground that we'll soon be talking about a Das Elyon, a Das Tachten, which of course associates. That's why I brought the Ayin Beis to the two levels of Ohr. One is an Ohr that relates to darkness, and one that's an Ohr that defies, that's beyond darkness. So he says, but he says Kameshi is bar, so there's no need to go elaborate right now. He will discuss it. He said clearly, so we'll get there. But he wants to mention it here, and I'll refer to it back when we get there. That this Das Elyon, the Yesh La'ayin, that's the Ayin of Chochmei Law. Torah, in other words, is the Ayin of the Yesh Amiti, and that's why it's the higher level of Ohr. Because Ayin is the level of Ohr, but the level of Ohr as it's beyond the Yesh, Anivra, the Yesh Amiti, the Ohr connected to the source. And then there's going to be the Ohr as it relates to the Yesh Anivra, which is the Ma'ayin Liyesh, not Miyesh La'ayin, Ma'ayin Liyesh, and Das Tav. Okay. So that's now the summation, two levels of Ohr. One that is post-darkness and subject to darkness, the other pre-darkness and not subject to any concealment. And that's the level of Torah Ohr, as he puts it now. He does say Ohr, the Torah mitzvah, so we'll understand that soon when we talk about Ner mitzvah and Torah Ohr, because we still need to understand how that applies to Ner mitzvah and Torah Ohr. Right now, we've established two levels of Ohr. As he said in the beginning of that of page 403, in the beginning of the paragraph, he said, And we're learning the inyan hachachma the Torah shenikra Ohr, 2 levels of Ohr. Okay. Any questions?
Yes, I was curious about this phrase choshech ha'elyon, the higher level of darkness. I don't remember distinguishing, different levels of darkness. I mean, and for that matter, you would think that, forgive me for just hanging it with me, the highest level of darkness is really in the lowest realm because it's darker in the lower realms than it is in the upper realms. So can you explain this concept of the higher level of darkness versus, and also therefore what's the lower level of darkness?
Well, whenever it says the word elyon, like das elyon, for example, or cheshech elyon, or oir elyon, or you'll find a lot of expressions. Elyon is simply meaning the way it is, all the way in the highest levels. In other words, the cheshech that goes through ishtalshlus is as it manifests step by step in its gradations as it goes downward. Cheshech elyon is saying the supernal cheshech, meaning the first cheshech as it is above, which in this case would be Yashas Cheshach Sisrei, which would be the Tzimtzum Arishin. So the Tzimtzum Arishin is the root of all Tzimtzumim. So like saying the highest level of Cheshach, or the root, or we call this, I would call it the supernal Cheshach. It's a concept that you find in many places, like Levin Elyon, about love and Levin Elyon, the supernal whiteness, Adam Elyon, everything experienced in contrast to Tachton would be as it comes down below in our existence. So this is the Cheshach as it is within so-called the Godhead, if you wish. In this case, the Tzimtzum Arishin.
And second question, he talks about this higher level of light that pierces through the darkness, that it transcends darkness, if you will. It can't be occluded. Anyways, he says, or the Torah of mitzvahs. Before, and I know he never really said it, but I thought we had discussed that Torah was this higher level of light, the Ohr lifnei Tzimtzum, and mitzvahs were a lower level of.
He never said that.
He never said that, huh?
No.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when you asked me that yesterday, I said we'll get to it. We didn't get to it yet.
Right.
And I actually referred to it now. I said clearly, it said the Torah mitzvah, even though he says Torah mitzvah. So we'll get to what the difference is between Torah and mitzvahs right now. Is mitzvah connected to Torah or not connected? Ner mitzvah Torah, remember, is one verse. So we'll see what he's going to say about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Is the oil shelifnei hachoshech? This is one level, or there are 2 levels? One level is that the oil shelifnei hachoshech is having a possibility to be nitzamtzem. Then there is the sheresh oil that is b'chlal not shayches to be nitzamtzem. Is this correct?
He doesn't say it explicitly. I speculated before whether we're talking about 2 levels in the higher level of the difference between the Eibush, let's say, and Shlema Melech. You could break it down that way based on other Maimorim of Chassidus, but it's not necessary. What it seems like he's saying here when I read it, he doesn't want to really break it into 2, because he could have said it explicitly. It sounds like that there's the Geil Er Mepnei Cheshech and Cheshech Mepnei Er. That's one level. That's the level where Yashash Cheshech Sisrei, and there's the Tzimtzum, and first comes Vayi Erev, Vayi Beker, and first so there's the Er Lifnei Tzimtzum. There's the Tzimtzum that conceals, and there's the Er after the Tzimtzum. So technically, that's what you're describing. And then there's the Er Be'etzem that's not subject to Tzimtzum altogether. So in other Maimonic Chassidus, it does say that. There's an expression, there's Er Shenogabai had Tzimtzum, for example. And there's Er Shalei Nogabai had Tzimtzum. So there is that concept, but not here. He doesn't say it explicitly here. So if you really want to break it down, you probably could break it into 2 levels. It's just that Loi Nochis, in this Maimer, is not negated to him to break it into 2 levels. So you're correct based on other Maimorim, but here he's not breaking it into 2, at least from my reading. So in Inyan, the answer is yes, but here, not everywhere does Chassidus have to focus on the difference between the 2 levels that you're describing. Now he may break it down further as we go further, because keep in mind, I thought you'd jump on a different question, all of you, which is, if this Ohr is not subject to Tzimtzum, so why don't we have it? The Ohr that was subject to Tzimtzum, we understand the teacher concealed his idea. So fine, he concealed it. So the student only gets Efes Kitseyu, he gets only the Aleph, Beis, Gimel, whatever, a little of the Ohr. But if there's a level that's not subject to Tzimtzum, why is it not revealed to us? So the answer to that is interesting, which he's definitely, I'm sure, going to speak about, is because that goes into the category of like etzem. Like we all have an etzem hanefesh, we just don't have access to it. So the etzem hanefesh is not subject to tzimtzum. For example, God forbid, afal pishachata Yisraelhu. Even when a Yisrael sins, he's still Yisrael. The neshama, the etzem neshama, is never affected even by sins. What's affected are the channels, like the arteries to the heart can be clogged. But the etzem hanefesh remains intact because it's not subject to tzimtzum. A chet can't even affect it in the first place. So there are levels of the nefesh, like we learned earlier, that come down into the body, and it feels mikre haguf, it feels the experiences of the body and the pain and joy of the body. But there's levels of the nefesh that remain completely removed. But the problem is we can't access it. Just because it's not subject to tzimtzum doesn't mean we could access it. It means it remains an atzmis level, and the goal is to bring that etzem begilui into an Ohr that does relate to tzimtzum. Because the mila of the lower Ohr, remember, is an Ohr that we can relate to. This higher level of Ohr, as powerful as it is, it's not yet relatable. That's why we can't access it. Torah gives it to us, and we're going to learn about that. But it's fundamentally a level that we have not yet integrated. The teacher teaching Aleph Beis, that's integrated by us. It's true, it's only an Aleph, it's only a lower level Efes Kitseyu, but at least we can relate to it. But as we expand our Kalim and we grow, we can ultimately also begin to draw down from the higher levels of Ohr. So that's why it's so important to know there's a level of Etzem Ohr, what he calls Primis Atzmus Ohr, even though technically we can't access it, meaning in an eternal way. We can't understand it, we can't relate to it, but it's there, like Etzem HaNefesh is there. I just wanted to put that into the equation to understand where we're going with all of this.
But the Goylel Ohr Mipnei Chosh, you cannot relate that to the higher level. Maybe he's not talking about it.
No, you're right. No, you're correct. He says that. If you look at the bottom line, he says that clearly. You're correct. He says the Mashayoshes Cheshach Sis is Elshen is Samtzev in a Salam Bezek Canal, but Pirish Gel Mipnei Cheshach. Yeah, that's correct. Gel Mipnei Cheshach is definitely an Ohr and Cheshach that speak to each other, or else it wouldn't make sense. Gel Mipnei Cheshach. Gel Mipnei Cheshach means that the Ohr recedes in the face of darkness. That's clearly a relationship between he had like you said, the Bereishis Hasheicha v'Had and Nehera. That's clearly an Ohr that relates to Tzimtzum for sure. Anyway, point is, it's correct. The Ohr that can be concealed is not the Ohr that's beyond concealment. So even before the Tzimtzum, you have to say there's an Ohr that could be concealed and there's an Ohr that's beyond concealment. That's what you're asking, and it's correct to say that. I'm just saying that here in this Maimon, he's not emphasizing it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not correct. I'm just saying it's not negaya here to the Havana to make that emphasis. That's all.
Maybe
is
this Dalge, the higher Dalge, that is not allowed to Yoshes Choshech Sisroi. Enough?
One more.
What are you asking, or you're saying?
I'm asking that maybe the Torah Ohr is shaykh to the higher level, that is not shaykh to Yoshes Choshech Sisroi.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly, not maybe, that's exactly what he says here. Torah Ohr is the higher level. Atzmus, he calls it. Be'er panecha nasata lanu. Kedem, he says, Kedem shoyat tzimtzum harishon decheshach sisrei. He says it explicitly, what you just said. Yeah, absolutely. In Torah Sheira, the Atzmus Ohr, that's l'mayla mecheshach altogether. It's actually what he says in Torah Ohr. Torah Ohr from the Alter Rebbe. I read it yesterday. I just want to read it again. This is the language that he uses in Torah Ohr. He says like this. Torah Ohr, I'm sure it's in the mile mat. Ohr begin in some mamish la mile mishtalshlus. She read this druggers. Say the stalshlus begins helen we slaps to say and say baruch. Lies is savus mohus achem mohus befanim minim shenim. Komesh kosav yoshos cheshach sisre. Shu cheshach vehelen v'lei v'gili. Vala teira nemar megala amukes mine cheshach u'mamaktim koresicha. And that's then Hamshach l'mayla mishtalshus, and later he calls it Atzmus l'mayla Tzimzum on page 39A and B. Very clearly. What the Mittler Rebbe is saying here is coming straight from this Torah Ohr. He's just elaborating on it. Yeah. Okay.
Rabbi Jacobson, is this or Haganuz that we're talking about, or that's something different?
Or Haganuz is an expression that has many, many meanings.
Meaning the one that was there for 36 hours in the creation of the world, and then Hashem took it away. Is this that, or we don't know?
We don't know.
Okay.
The ability, I have a question about the how the or Elyon, if you will, or Pnimi, or Atzmi, it seems to be these are all the same. How it gets revealed into the darkness. Is that a function of the neshama, or is that a function of building up our kelim, or both, or something else?
I would wait to see how this develops in the Maimer before commenting on that.
Okay.
We'll see. I don't want to speculate because we're middle of this. Hopefully the Mittler Rebbe will discuss this directly.
Thank you. It seems like mitzvahs are the key. It's like a channel, but he hasn't said it yet.
As you know, I'm not processing.
I know. Yeah, I know.
We'll learn when we get there. I'm patient, and what can I tell you?
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll stop here, even though we have learned this already, but it's good that we learned it again, to be honest, because it's pretty heavy material. And now he's going to continue, just a little intro to what we're going to continue. He's going to speak now. But this Chokhmah of Torah, even though it's rooted in these highest levels, the fact, however, Torah does come down below. That's what he's going to qualify now. As you see, so Torah also comes downward into our existence. So he's going to explain the difference between Torah as it's in its root and as it comes down. So obviously all this is going to come together because the neshama is also going through all these stages. Neshama also is rooted high and then comes down below. So we're soon going to see how it all comes together. But right now he's talking about the journey of Torah. Neshama we spoke about Ner Hashem Nishmasadim at length. So he's going to talk about the journey of Torah as it goes from the highest levels down. That's going to be the next section. And yeah. The next section, and then I'm just looking ahead. Asalian. Yeah, this is going to go for quite a few pages. And I think on page 409, we're going to start going back to I think mitzvahs, maybe. Or maybe not, maybe later even. No. Well, there's plenty more to go. Let's put it that way. I'm not sure when he goes back to mitzvahs. I think 411 maybe. Okay, so we're in the middle of Torah Ohr and its journey. That's the key thing to keep in mind. So I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the class, but I want to mention it now. We're dedicating the class to the loving memory of Ariel ben Avram, Zachrenu Levracha Hashem Yimkam Damai, the nephew of our dear friend George. May the family be consoled, and may the neshama elevate them, send only blessings to all of us, only good news going forward.
Amen. Amen.
And our learning is in his honor. And by extension, honor of all our holy soldiers, those that have fallen, those that are fighting to protect our brothers and sisters in the Holy Land. And protect us also from all the enemies all over the world who have no interest in Jews protecting themselves.
No interest in light. Yeah, well, the darkness doesn't want the light.
Those that have level-headed minds understand very clear, why are the Jewish people the only nation on earth that are not allowed to defend themselves? I mean, it's like, anyway, I'll say it after the recording. So let me stop the recording here.